Hey everyone, Leilani Joy here, and welcome to another episode of The Paint Along, the show where you can paint along with me in real time while I answer your art and not so art related questions. I'm really excited to be back today and rocking my nerd legally blind glasses. I just ran out of contacts today and I went to put some in and I'm like, oh, I don't have any. So I'm gonna have to go nerd chic. I don't know if you can see how thick the glass actually is on these. I am legally blind. I don't think I've ever discussed this before, but I am both nearsighted and farsighted, and without my glasses on I can probably see, okay, like right there. That's when my hand is in focus. It's very bad. But thanks to the wonder of science and technology, I can wear these magical apparatuses to help me see and create art. So I'm really excited to be back today. I feel like I've been gone for a really long time, and I'll tell you guys more about what I've been up to in a moment. But I am here today to start a piece for the Bad Apple Artist Collective, and I'm really excited about this one because one of my favorite artists ever, Jeremiah Kentner, aka Small and Round, is going to be a guest artist with us this month, and our theme is bloom, which is spring and all things floral and flowery. And the other night, I've been going to bed extremely late lately, like 4 in the morning, because I've just been like a crazy workaholic, and I usually can't fall asleep right away when I stay up that late. I'm all like wired and stuff, and so I was just laying in bed and I'm like, ooh, and this like image started like shaping in my mind. So that is what I'm going to be doing today. So luckily I wrote it down before I fell asleep and forgot. Anyways, get some art supplies, get some knitting, get some homework to do, set me up in your outside and mow the grass. Well, I guess you won't be able to hear me. Anyways, find an activity that needs doing and we will talk fun art stuff today on the Paint Along. So let's go up to my camera and I'll show you guys what I'm working with. Watch yourself. Shake it fast. Show me what you... Alright, so here we go. Here is my work in progress here. And I have beside me my color comp, which I have created in Photoshop from a sketch that I did. And so a couple people have asked me, they're like, where does this picture come from? It just like appears. So this is something I do digitally. I usually do a rough sketch, even sometimes just a thumbnail, and then I scan that into Photoshop and just do some fills of color and gradients just to get my values working and, you know, kind of have an idea of my color palette when I start painting. I just like to have a guide, a paint by number, if you will. It saves me a lot of pain and suffering. A lot of people do these on their iPads now. So if you're not a Photoshop if you're not a Photoshop person, they have some really great apps where you can do some coloring. Procreate, I know, is a great one. I want to start doing some Procreate stuff because I've seen some incredible work done in Procreate. So anyways, that's just part of my personal process. Another part of my personal process is being in a hurry and being slightly special when I do things. Because I realized right after I did my transfer that I did this in reverse of the color comp I did, where I had actually the dark on the bottom and the lighter at the top. However, I'm going to try very hard not to freak out and kind of adhere to a little bit of a Bob Ross mentality about this and be like, okay, maybe it's a happy accident. And because I'm, you know, I'm on a time crunch as usual, I'm going to proceed as is. And I think it will still work. I think it'll just have a slightly different feeling. It might not feel so contrasty. That. Can't talk today. I haven't talked to a person in like a couple days, so my mouth don't work right. I think it'll be less contrasted. Yeah, contrasted down here, but I think that might be okay, actually. I think it might be kind of interesting to have it more dark at the bottom, and her face will probably be more of a focal point because of the saturation up here. So maybe I just fixed my own problem and this will actually be cooler than I intended. So there you go. I don't know. Sometimes you just got to go with it. I mean, it's art, not science. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes and sometimes things work out better than you even intend them to. Okay, so also I couldn't find my palette paper today for some reason, so I'm going to be mixing my paint on this piece of glass I have left over from a frame. So you guys might see over here, you're like, are you mixing your paint on your table, you weirdo? But I'm actually not, because there's a piece of glass over here. Alrighty then. So let's get rolling. Got my painting and I've got my guide and I've got some palettes. So I'm going to start with some white. I have to admit, I don't know what it is right now, but my current obsession is brown girls with white hair, or like girls of color, tan color, and just like super opposite hair. I just think that is like really awesome. I don't know. Maybe it's my current gray hair obsession or white hair obsession, and I want to just get really tan this summer and have some like opposite hair. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting. And the other thing I was thinking of is that everyone is probably going to do very saturated colors and bright colors for spring. And I don't know, for some reason I just saw daisies, and I just saw like this daisy in her mouth, and I don't know, it's weird. This is what I feel like doing right now. Anyways, I have a question. I'm going to start off with this question. I have some to catch up on, but I got a really good one on Facebook today, and I want to address it first because it's something that I actually have not talked about. I don't think. Anyways, so my first question today comes from Jennifer T, and she says, what has been the most frustrating part of being a freelance female artist? I have found that there are certain assumptions made about women who paint, quote, pretty girls that are particularly frustrating, or even certain requests that are either insulting or just plain disgusting. And I really am glad that Jennifer brought this up, because it's something I have not really talked about, but I've certainly dealt with and do deal with often. And as you can probably assume, that it is primarily coming from men who, for some reason, think that because a woman is an artist, and I think it transcends subject matter, actually. I have several female friends that don't do, quote, pretty girl art, and they still have had incidents of sexual harassment. I don't know if they think, I don't even do sexually themed art, really, so I can't even imagine what female artists get that do sexual subject matters. Because for some reason, many men seem to think this is some kind of open door for them to be aggressive and send very inappropriate emails. I've seen some things that I wish I could unsee, quite frankly. It's never gotten too bad for me, luckily, but I do have a friend who, I'm not going to even say her name because I don't even know if she wants to share this. She's a prominent fantasy artist, and she said, pardon my French, but she says, I don't even know how many dick pics I've gotten. And I'm like, what the F? I mean, why is it that she is an artist and a female? Does she want to see your genitals? Okay, we don't want to see your genitals. Let's just put it out there right now. Men, we don't want to see them. Okay? And if we do, we'll let you know. And there's a very slim chance that's going to happen. Okay? I don't know if there's just, there's a certain amount of maybe vulnerability with us being artists, and they think that we're expressive and sensual and sexual, and we are, but that does not mean that we want you to harass us. I've had many men be forward, inappropriate, send stalk, unfortunately, but it's disconcerting, honestly. I have not yet met a female artist who hasn't had an instance of that. I've gotten men to like saying, oh, like, you can paint me naked, I'll send you pictures, and I'm just like, no. I even have a female artist I know whose first name is ambiguous, so her first name is Alex, and she says that she doesn't post any photos of herself, and she keeps her gender very ambiguous professionally to avoid this type of thing. And I don't understand it. It definitely seems to be something in the art community. But yeah, I would certainly like to get to the bottom of it because I find it troubling. And I don't know if any of you out there have had experiences. I would love to hear them. If there's men that have had experiences, I would like to know. I certainly have not heard of a male artist saying, oh, women are sending me nudes telling me to paint them, or other men, for that matter. So I don't know, dudes, just like stop being creepy. Okay, we're just not into it. I don't know. I can't really explain that one, but I'm sorry if you've encountered the same thing, but I can relate, unfortunately. There doesn't seem to be a lot we can do about it. I did see, some of you guys probably saw this one girl, and I have to kind of like applaud her. She like got some revenge for the rest of us. She had some rando dude sending her pictures of his genitalia for no reason. He seemed to be some random person. And so she's like, okay, you like those pictures? Well, I'm going to send you penis pictures all day until you like it, because you seem to think that I like it for some reason. So she like harassed this guy all day long and just sent him like the nastiest, like grossest pictures ever. And I'm like, well, yeah, see, you don't really like it when it comes at you. I guess my final thought on this, without just ranting all day about it, because I certainly could, is, has that ever worked? Gentlemen, has that ever worked on a woman? That you sent her inappropriate, unsolicited pictures of your genitals and said, come on, let's hook up and do it. And they said yes. No? Oh, okay. Well, maybe stop doing that. Sorry to go on a tirade, but I'm glad that Jennifer brought that up, because it's something that is a reality, and art in particular seems to be a bit of an open door for that. But yeah, us ladies, we don't want to be harassed because we're making art. Yeah, so stop it. Okay, well, my next question comes from Mrs. Quam, and so speaking of non-creepy men, thank God, her question is, how did you meet your hubby? Brian and I met on Match.com. I have no shame about that. I was coming off a long-term, like 4-year relationship with someone from high school, and it was hard. I hadn't really dated anyone other than that person, and I was very shy. I didn't really know anything about dating, actually, because my first relationship was just like a friend who became my boyfriend, and yeah, it was just very easy. So I had some interesting Match.com stories. Should probably be careful sharing them just in case any of them find out about this, but there was a few weird ones. One guy I never went out with because he called me from jail and said, oh, I got arrested for a DUI and I hit a tree and I'm not going to be able to make it tonight. And I'm like, good for you, dude. You're definitely a winner. And he's like, he called me again and he was like, want to reschedule? I'm like, nah, I'm good. Good luck at AA. Anyways, I'm sorry. I don't mean to joke about that. That's a serious thing. I'm very sorry. Anyways, Brian and I met on Match.com, and it's kind of a funny story because he never paid for it. He had a 3-day trial. I was on the thing for like, I don't know, 6 months. I was like kind of over the whole thing. I'm like, I'm done with this. This is so hard. It's like job interviews. You guys know, if any of you guys are trying to date right now, it's like a lot of work. And my mom's like, well, you have like a couple days left. Like, go out on one more date. And this guy, this cute guy, like winked at me and he sent me a message. And I was like, oh, I like his pictures. He's an artist too. And honestly, I was kind of just being a jerk about it. I didn't even want to go when my mom and sister made me. And yeah, the minute I met him, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've known you my whole life. Him and I are like similar to a fault at times. We're so much alike that it's, we almost never argue about what we're going to do today or what we're going to watch or what we're going to eat. Like, we just like all the same things. The only problem is if we finally do disagree on something, like it's like pretty bad. We get in some pretty big fights. But for the most part, I'm very, very lucky. I feel like I met my soulmate, my match for sure. And it's amazing to date another creative person. I had never had any kind of relationship with someone else who was an artist, so I didn't really know how important that is in a way. I mean, I definitely think you can, if you're an artist, you can find someone who is empathetic to what being an artist is. But I think a lot of people don't understand. It's there's a certain amount of at least for me, that I can become introverted. I can become super focused. Like, I just want to go in this little corner here and I just want to make art. I don't want to deal with anything else. And I feel like even sometimes my parents, I love my parents dearly. They're very, very supportive. But I do feel that there were certain times where they didn't understand that about me, that I was somewhat introverted, that I wanted to stay home and work on my comic. Like, that meant so much to me. I spent an entire summer waking up at like 8 in the morning, sitting at the dining room table and just drawing my comic. And my mom would be like, why don't you call your little girlfriends and go like to the movies? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And I mean, I love people. I find now that I'm sort of a extroverted introvert, but I don't know. I always was very content just working on my projects. And I think some people don't understand that about artist personality types, and having another artist as your partner, it's very beneficial because he's the same way. He's more extroverted than I am, though, so he kind of gets me out of my shell, which is great. But he has times too where he just zones, and he works crazy fast, and he just concentrates, and like he's just, you know, he's in that creative zone. So it's nice to have someone who can do that also and relate, and not be like, hey, come out of your room and let's like do something. Anyways, total sidebar, but yes, that is how I met Brian. And yeah, we've been married for 9 months now. Oh, wait, no, I don't mean like 9 months sound like I'm gonna have a kid soon or something. No children. Not at this point anyways. Okay, my next question comes from Kiara Studio, who asks, if you could have one mythical creature as a pet companion, what would it be? I mean, unicorn. I think I have to go with unicorn. I mean, I was obsessed with them. I'm still obsessed with them. I used to, when I was a little kid, this is legit. I believed that if I wished hard enough every day that I would have one. I would, like, every day I would go outside and I would swing on my swing set, and I'd like chant to myself, and I'd go, I wish for a unicorn Pegasus. I wish for a unicorn Pegasus. I wish for a unicorn Pegasus. Preferably with rainbow hair, but not necessarily, you know. So I guess I'd have to say that. I would probably like it if it could be sort of like little horse size, so I could have it in the house. Because I don't have anywhere to keep a big horse, but like a small one, that would be really great. Okay, my next question comes from Sour Patch Lewis, who says, I love your paintings. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I love to draw, but I've been having a hard time coming up with what to draw, and every time I feel like drawing and actually drawing something, it looks horrible. Do you have any tips on what I can do to stop this from happening? Oh, well, Sour Patch Lewis, this is something that happens to the best of us. That's certainly true. I've actually had that before. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to draw, and then it comes out on the paper, and you're like, oh, crap. Like, it looks like when you order something off the internet and you expect it to be amazing, and it's not. But I have a couple recommendations for you. Something, usually I find when this is happening, it's usually a couple of things. First of which is you are feeling very ambitious, but your technique is not where you'd like it to be. So whenever you're drawing, you're looking at thinking of what you want, and you don't actually yet have the skills to achieve that look. So that's often a frustration. And that only comes from really practicing and studying what you have trouble with. So if every time you're like, oh my God, I get down to it and I just can't draw hands, I can't draw eyes, face, whatever. Take some time to just do some studies and practice those things that you're struggling with. So maybe pull back a little bit and just try to focus on brushing up your technical skills. The other thing that could be happening to you is you have no reference. And let's be real, like there's only like a few super gifted people that are able to create amazing art with no reference. And that is because most of the time they have practiced so much and drawn so many things that they actually have it in their head already. They already know what those things look like and what to do. So that could be part of your problem as well. So I always like to go back to this and say, so speaking of that, one of the most incredible artists of our time, Ian McCaig. He's one of those people that can just draw of his head and it looks like a freaking masterpiece. But that's just because he's been at it for so long and he draws constantly. But some advice he gave, and I know I've talked about this before, but I'm going to stick it in here again because I haven't talked about it probably since one of my older episodes, is when I was at Spectrum Fantastic Art Live a couple years ago, he did a talk, and he was talking about how to get a really strong illustration. And he said what he recommended doing is first do a very quick sketch from your head. Just like doodle something off, stick figures even, just kind of get the idea out. And then once you have that, stage 2 would be to actually do some research and get some reference of the correct way to achieve that. And then do a study from the reference, directly from the reference, and teach yourself sort of at least get close to what it should look like. And then you do a third drawing, a third and final drawing, where you combine your organic idea with the reference. And that is really, really works. I do this all the time because, hey, sometimes even something simple, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know out of my head. I'm not like, I don't draw often enough to be that skilled where I don't need a reference. So this is something that I often do, and I do a thumbnail sometimes as the first stage, is something really, really simple. And then I'll find some research, or I'll take a photo, or I'll use an inspiration photo that I have, and then create a third piece, which is a combining of the both. So try a couple of those things. The other thing you might be doing is just being a little bit too hard on yourself. Honestly, everyone's art goes through an ugly stage. So you might just not be pushing through your ugly stage. I mean, this is looking pretty fugly right now. I mean, it doesn't look great in the first few stages. So just kind of be a little more forgiving to yourself and force yourself to complete something and push it through to completion, so you can learn what to do differently or what you'd like to improve on next time. So I hope that helps you, Sour Patch Lewis. That's a few ideas for you to get started with anyway. So I've skipped ahead a little bit and finished filling in the first layer of my white daisies. And I also took a few moments to mix up some flesh tone, and I like it. So, you know, when I use my little color matchy match here, I can take my little paint mix and see how close I got. I think I actually got pretty darn close, which is great. And you know, if you do one of these, remember that your printed image is usually going to be a little bit more dull than your paint. Luckily, acrylic is super saturated and bright, and so you'll have a little bit more of a saturated color typically when you're using your paint. Okay, so next I have a question from Walt Hitman. That's clever, is it? I'm hoping that's actually a play on like Walt Whitman, like Walt Hitman. I don't know, clever. Anyway, Walt Hitman asks, what is something you want to improve on? Everything. I want to be better, faster, stronger, better. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I hope to constantly improve every aspect of my art, of my career. Time management is a big one for me. I kind of go through these little moments of like, oh, I just don't feel like working, and sometimes I lose important time when I'm feeling burned out. So I would like to be able to balance a little bit better so that I don't get so burned out. I think that's something that I struggle with. I'd like to get better at. I would like to be a little bit more, how do I describe this? I did an interesting lesson recently for the Life book, and I'll talk a little bit more about that maybe after this question. But I taught a lesson where we were really going in depth into our own artistic influences and something that I like to call our artistic heritage and what creates your style and why you create art the way you do. And I learned quite a few things about myself in this process, and I hope the students do too. But I find that a lot of these artists that I'm super inspired by create art that's very cerebral, if you will. It's not so restrictive. It's often has organic, abstract shapes and colors that flow around. And why I'm this kind of weird conundrum at times, because I'm really, really hooked on graphic shapes at the same time. I want to get better at incorporating those things together, because those are the things that really, really inspire me. And that's silhouettes, graphics, and organic abstract. So it's a conundrum. It's something odd that I found out about myself, that I'm really, really split between those two things. So it's something I'd like to get better at balancing and creating something unique in my own artwork. And I don't know, I feel like I kind of do that sometimes, but then other times I'm like, no, I feel like I'm still too restrictive. I'd like to be a little bit more free, a little bit more uncontrolling of my artwork, I feel like, because I am attracted to many artists that are more sort of organic with the way that they create. So that's an interesting question, but honestly, I am hard on myself. I think with every single thing I do, I'm like, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. I am driven in that way. So I am always feeling like I could do better. I want to do better. I want to make better videos, edit them better, speak better, make more classes. I want to do all of that. So I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, but at the same time, I also want to get better at being forgiving to myself and not letting myself be overcome with stress and anxiety, because I also have a tendency to do that. And I should probably, at some point, I want to do, like, I don't know, maybe I'll do a paint along where we all talk about like our personal struggles, and maybe I can pull some from, you know, your guys' experiences. But I haven't talked a whole lot about that, but I definitely suffer with anxiety. I don't feel like I have like, I don't know, I feel like my depression is different than some people's. I don't really have the type of depression where like I can't get out of bed, but I just get very very critical of myself, and I think that's a different form of maybe of depression and anxiety. But it's something that I deal with. I've dealt with my entire life, and for most of my life I did not know what it was. I thought that there was something wrong with me. I had a stomach ache, like every day I had to go to school. I felt very sick to my stomach. I was nauseated. I went to the doctor. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. And now that I'm an adult and I've done a lot of research and reading and kind of self-healing and discovery on it, I realized that I was just freaking anxious. I was anxious every morning. I was afraid of what was going to happen, if somebody was going to say something to me, if I was, you know, who knows, someone's going to look at me weird. And that's all it was. And it was nothing but a feeling. And it was something I probably could have controlled more if I had recognized what it was. I was very much like a perfectionist even as a child. I hated to even come close to failing at something or having a teacher criticize me. I was very like I was a big crier, overly sensitive, I guess you would say. Anyway, I haven't talked about that that much, but making videos and talking on live on camera and putting myself out there in the internet has helped me in a lot of ways overcome some of that, because I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Somebody gonna, you know, say something mean to me. But it's made me braver, and yeah, so I'm glad that was actually part of my process of coming out of that a little bit. And it is hard, and I do see things, I see people criticize me all the time. I had somebody the other day that just went like commented on all my videos and said the nastiest, meanest things. I'm just like, well, you know what, you probably are kind of sad inside, and I feel bad for you that it makes you feel better to tear someone else down. And you know what, it's, hey, we're all people, and no matter how someone looks online or presents themselves, it's important to remember that we're never exactly what we, you know, perceive. Like this one person was like, oh, you think you're so pretty and everything. And I'm like, no, girl, no, I really don't. Most of the time I'm like a sloppy hot mess, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting bags under my eyes. I put makeup on, it makes me feel good about myself. I put bright lights on myself and filters, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's a cute picture. So whatever. No one is, everybody is actually real, and they're not, just like how you fantasize them to be. So I think that's always important to keep in mind anyways. But yeah, that went on a slight tangent, but yeah, so there's always self-improvement that we can all do. And if you're interested in more, in a really artistic way of dealing with expression, self-loathing, artist block, and healing, I really, really want to encourage you guys. It's not too late to join the Lifebook 2017. Here's my affiliate link right there. It'll take you to willowing.com and it will tell you all about the classes. I started watching the videos of the other instructors and it is so amazing. I wish that I had time to do all of the assignments. So if you guys don't know, Lifebook, it's like a year-long program. So you get a creative art lesson, a visual journal lesson every week for 52 weeks. Is that how many weeks? So you get 52 lessons plus bonus lessons and stuff. And it's all just like self-guided and available for all levels. And each lesson focuses on different self-healing and creative strategies to just be kinder to yourself, love yourself more. And I know it might sound a little hippy dippy, but I think it's awesome. And I'm teaching one later this month and I'm finishing that up. And so that was the thing I was telling you guys about. I was staying up really late because I was working super hard on my videos. And I can show you a sneak peek of it. I can't show you guys the content because it's exclusive for Lifebook students. But basically, I'm helping students discover their styles by taking them through a series of artist inspiration pieces. So in this mini study, I did a tribute to Sergio Topi, who is one of my favorite artists, and I'm inspired by them. And I wanted to do these sort of as self-portraits. So I took so it's kind of like the style challenge, if you guys have seen that. But I do a very in-depth, over 1 hour lesson where I explore these influences. This is the portrait I created inspired by Disney, since that's one of my other very strong influences growing up. So yeah, it's a really fun lesson, and I talk more about discovering yourself as an artist and how to learn from your influences, pull things from your influences and incorporate them into your own personal style. I have, so I did 6 of these for the lessons, and it was a really interesting journey of self-discovery, and I share all of that in my lesson on Lifebook. So if you're interested in still joining up, you still can. And I will be interacting for a couple of weeks following my lesson with students and with their assignment. So I will be available for you to chat with as well. So I hope some of you guys will still join us, because I think it's just amazing. And at the very end of the year, when you're finished with your Lifebook, you bind all of your pages into one book, and it's gorgeous. So I don't know, maybe next year I'll do it along with you guys, because I would love to. Those of you who have joined me, thank you so much. I recognize some of your names popping up in there, and I'm like, oh, cool. So thank you for that. But yeah, so think about that if that's something that interests you. It's very, there's nothing, so in juxtaposition to my class, if you're kind of wondering the difference, my class is a much more structured, technically oriented. So I'm giving you a lot more feedback on improving your technique and actually creating stronger illustrations. But the Lifebook is more just like, you know, you take a couple hours each week and just create something and be really free with it, and not be kind of analyzing your technique too much or anything. So it's a little bit more free form and that way, and nothing will be graded or critiqued, or unless you want it to. You can submit it to the forums if you want to get some student feedback or instructor feedback. That's kind of optional. Anywho, that was kind of a sidebar, but I did want to tell you guys about that a little bit more. Okay, anyways, my next question comes from Miss Ava Nicole Art, and she says, what are some of the sacrifices you've had to make to be a full-time freelance artist, big or small? That's a great question. Gosh. Well, I don't know. It's very different. If anyone freelances or even works on commission or does this kind of work, they will relate to this. But one of the things is just sort of like the odds scheduling that you have. When you go to a 9-to-5 job, you get to go home and you're like, okay, I'm off work now and I can do whatever I want with my time, and I can relax and watch movies and play video games or whatever, you know. While I do my fair share of that, no doubt, there's times where I'm like, man, I really wish my day was over, but it's much more task oriented, of course, and deadline oriented. So depending on what I'm working on, which is usually, way too many things at once, I don't ever have like an exact schedule. I'm like, I just got to put in as many hours today as I possibly can so that I can move on to the next thing. And then, I'd like to, whenever possible, is take a break in between projects, but sometimes you just can't do that. So that's definitely one of the hard things, and it's hard for people to understand sometimes, and friends that don't work in the field. Luckily, most of our friends now, we all kind of work in the creative field, so everybody kind of gets it. But it's hard when people are like, well, I have, this thing I want to do on the weekend, and I'm like, well, I don't take a weekend, technically. If something's due, it's due, and I'm going to work right through the weekend. So that's definitely something that's hard. Of course, a lot of the just great perks that go along with having a in-house studio job or 9 to 5 or things like health insurance, stuff like that is obviously more challenging. I had my own individual plan that I paid for, and it was probably like the crappiest insurance ever, and I paid like $150 a month. But now, luckily for me, since Brian is my spouse and he has a studio job, I get to reap the benefits of being the spouse and get health insurance and vision service plan, which I greatly need, and things like that. I don't know. It's the other thing, of course, is just the ups and downs. The ups and downs financially can be very stressful. I'm very lucky at this point. I'm kind of finally hitting a steady income, a stride, if you will. But hey, if I get sick or something and I can't paint that week or for a couple weeks, then that puts me behind and I'm not getting paid. I don't get sick leave. I don't get vacation time. So those are definitely things to consider depending on your priorities. It's a hard thing to deal with. So yeah, I don't know. Luckily for me, I feel like I haven't had to make too many sacrifices, but I have been asked before. I was making a joke earlier about, having kids or whatever, but like and some of you guys shared some really great experiences with me, which I appreciate. But that one is a challenge for me, considering having children, because you have to sacrifice your art making time, at least some of it. I mean, I know that would greatly cut into what I do, and I wouldn't get anything like maternity leave or anything like that. But then again, I could be home, I could save money on childcare, I could put them in a playpen next to me while I'm painting or something. But yeah, so those are some things to consider. I currently, none of my artist friends that I know personally, none of them have kids really. So I haven't really had anybody to follow stride with that. That would be something that would be challenging for me, because I am very driven with my career, and it's important for me to do more. I want to do books, I want to write, I want to do more classes. So kids and things would really have kind of put a spur in that, at least for a while, until they can go to school or whatnot. So I don't know. Those are definitely things to consider if you want to do this full time. On the other hand, there are a lot of great perks. I mean, I do what I love as a job. I don't think that many people get to say that. And for the most part, it makes me incredibly happy, and I'm incredibly grateful. So, and the rewards can be huge when my really hard work pays off and I get contacted by a gallery or get a new opportunity. It's like something I didn't even plan for, but it happened because I kept putting in the work, and that's so satisfying. Okay, next question is from Rain Shadow. Hey, Rain Shadow, how are you doing? It's always lovely to hear from you. Your question today is, what are your favorite shows and movies that you've seen at the moment? Ooh, that's a good one. Beauty and the Beast. I just went and saw that in the theater, and oh my god, if you have not seen it, you need to go. It was so good. Like, really, they really did justice, I think, to the animated one, and I was just like blubbering and like a little girl, just like crying the whole time, because it was just so nostalgic, and it was beautiful. The costumes were beautiful. They executed like the choreography. The songs were just exactly like as you remember them. You want to sing along with it. I loved it. I actually was even a fan of the things that were added. Like they added a little bit more to the story, very, very mildly, but just a few other like storytelling elements to make it a little bit longer, I think. But I thought it was great. I thought it was beautiful. I loved Emma Watson as Belle. I thought she was a great choice. She's very natural, I think. Yeah, loved it. My favorite shows at the moment, of course, are always RuPaul's Drag Race, because season 9 is on right now and it's getting so good. Oh my god, it's so good. This season's really good. There's a lot of really good people. I keep kind of like changing my mind about my favorites. It's hard. Like every week I'm like, I don't really want that person to go. Like they're just really great. So yeah, I that's kind of what I live for. That's what I give myself a break on Friday nights on VH1. I'm like, okay, I'm taking my break. I'm watching RuPaul's Drag Race and Untucked. So that's what I earn each week. I'm behind on other shows. I need to get back into Better Call Saul because I'm a really big Breaking Bad fan, and I heard that it's really good. I've seen the first season, but I'm behind. I haven't seen the second season, or I think the third season's already started, so I need to get back on with that. Okay, my next question comes from the amazing geeky artist. That makes two of us. All right, I'm not calling myself amazing, but hey, geeky for sure. How long did it take you to find your art style? I'm sure I've answered that. I'm still finding it. Okay, let's be honest. It's a work in progress. It's nothing that it's nothing like a light bulb comes on and you're like, okay, I know what my style is. It's a very, very organic process where you just kind of keep filtering it down until you're like, okay, I'm somewhat satisfied with that. So I don't know. I mean, I've been an artist my entire life, and I'm in my 30s now, so that's just kind of how long it took me to come up with what I'm doing right now. So I have come up with some techniques to help you speed that up, and I do offer that in lesson form in my online class, and I'm going to talk more about that because it's such a big subject. Like I just said, it's going to be the main focus of my Lifebook lesson as well. So if you're interested in kind of going in depth with me, but that's the story, Wishbone. And the amazing geeky artist also wants to know, has anybody ever told you that you weren't good enough in art? Yeah, I mean, all the time. They're mostly these people that live inside my head. Yeah, but sure, YouTube, man, you know, you guys know. I had one person was like, this is a while ago, but they were like, you're so bad at art. How dare you try to teach anyone? You're so pathetic. You suck so bad. My 5-year-old could do a better job. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, I'm not like pretending. I never claim that I'm like the best artist. So I'm like, all right, why are you reading me? I didn't say I was like any better than your 5-year-old. Maybe your 5-year-old is better than me. Like, more power to him. Pimp that out. Make some money. But I definitely get people that try to tell me what I do is not legitimate, and they don't know why I sell any of it. But you know what? That doesn't matter, because that's the great thing about art. You don't need anyone's approval to put it out there. If you made it, you made some art. And if you find another human on this earth that is like, I like that, that speaks to me, and you start selling it, even if you don't sell it, even if you do it just for fun, you don't need anyone to tell you that is good enough. Everybody has a different idea of what they think is good. So, and if everyone only stuck to what they thought was good, nothing unique or interesting would ever be created. You know, like, I just think of like dancing, for example. Like if everyone only had to do ballet because that was the only type of dancing that anyone thought was good, we wouldn't have some like break dancing or hip hop or any other form that would make the whole dance industry interesting. So I just think it's very boring for people to say, oh, if you only make photorealistic art, you're legitimate. How freaking boring is that? I mean, not, like I said this before, somebody clocked me and they're like, you're always hating on photorealism. I'm not. I just think that, like, I mean, I think that is perfecting technical skills, but coming up with an image that has never existed is something amazing to me. And I kind of stand by that. And you can do that with photography too, of course. But I don't know why people always have to decide that they're an expert on it. I mean, it's just like, you see this a lot with RuPaul's Drag Race. I always go back to this, but there's always some queens on the show that are like showgirls, whatever, and they're like, oh, you do creepy, weird drag, and that's not legitimate drag. And it's like, hey, hell yeah, it is. And every time they say that, that person like ends up winning. So I never understand that. The person that's willing to push the envelope and do something different is usually the one that succeeds in the long run. And people that just stick to their little bubbles and what they know and what they think is good and what they're comfortable with, they're never going to do anything that interesting. So that's my slight rant on that. But yes, of course, I've had people whisper in front of me at shows that they could do that as easily as I do. And I'm just like, well, it's not just my art. There's a lot more that has gone into this. A lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of late nights packing packages and, writing personal notes to my customers because they mean so much to me. That it's not just being able to make something better than someone else. So just some food for thought on that. Okay, so next I have some questions about art school and teachers. So I'm going to kind of see if I can incorporate this into sort of one overarching answer. So first of all, I have a question from Penny Bleh. Penny Bleh asks, many of my teachers avoid the question of what comes after graduation. How do you start to put your art out there and make a living? Yeah, I mean, this is the age-old question, right? And the honest truth is why they don't tell you is because they don't know. Because every single artist usually has a slightly different formula of how they got to where they got. And I definitely felt like this was missing from my art school. I've talked about this quite a bit before, that they offered a very, very vague portfolio development class. They did not tell us how to get work. And in my day, I sound like an old lady, they advised that you take out an ad in one of these gigantic books. It was like a phone book for illustrators, and you pay a couple of grand if you wanted a double page, I think it was, or one page. Or you could be in a tiny little corner for like $500. And you prayed and you hoped and you sat there every day and you hoped that some art director saw your page out of hundreds. And I was like, what? Like, that's my only chance of standing out? So I was very frightened and discouraged and had no plan whatsoever. So and again, this is what I want to teach so badly if I can ever get back to it. For those of you who are waiting for my business class, it's in progress. It's just very slow. I told someone recently, I'm like, when I did the Kickstarter for it, I really, really significantly underestimated how much work and time it would take to construct these things. I'm like, oh, I need like a couple months. No, it was huge. For my first class, I did over 60 videos, and each of those videos was talking, instruction, editing, and everything. And I have started on my business class, and I'm working on the curriculum part. But what's freaking me out a little bit is that things that I started out doing are obsolete already. There's certain things that I started with, and Facebook has changed so much. Instagram is changing. How you have to use ads. Even Etsy is changing for the better for the most part, but I have to now kind of relearn some of these things so that I can teach them to you, because it's already different than what I did. So we have to constantly be adapting to kind of like keep our head above all this changing technology and social media. So honestly, I mean, I've kind of told this story before, but how I just started is I just started taking my work out in person, and I went to every little craft art show anything that I could get some eyes on it, and I took it out there. I had like some little original paintings. Some of you guys that still watch me, if you bought one of my original paintings from one of my first little shows, like, thank you. You have a special place in my heart and helping me get started in all this. So yeah, I went outside first, and now I really recommend that more than anything because competition's getting pretty fierce on things like Instagram and stuff. So it's getting harder to stand out. I have found like that to be a little discouraging for me personally. Like I feel like I hit like a certain number of followers on Instagram and it's just plateaued. I haven't really been getting as many as I've gotten before. My YouTube's kind of the same thing. It's sort of like plateauing on my followers. So I need to get creative with, you know, kind of expand what I do to, you know, kick up some fresh interest in my work and stuff. So yeah, so those are the things I really want to go into depth with you guys in a class situation, and I want to really research it so I can help you, because I know this is really, really challenging. And like you said, there is some steps that I would encourage you to do, that I would have encouraged myself to do when I was starting out. So those are the things I want to focus on. So please stay, bear with me, Penny Black, because I want to bring those steps to you in a class-like form. But for now, I would just recommend you improve your art as much as you can. Focus on your product, because your product is number one. You want to have the best possible product you can. So keep brushing up your skills. I'm not sure where you are in education, but if you're not formally educated, I would highly recommend you take a class like my Art School Express or something similar, so that you know some of the rules and you know some of the things that you're going to be competing with against other professional artists, because that's the thing now. There's a lot of good art out there, so you need to kind of figure out how you can stand out, and how you can get the job. So those are things that I want to help you guys with, definitely, for sure, and brush up on my own skills, because I'm always looking for new ways to kind of get exposure and stuff. But continuing with art school and art professor questions, my next question comes from Evartsy Paint. And they say, did you ever come across teachers or professors who belittled your work, especially during critiques, and constantly used yours to compare with others? Ooh, yeah, yes, I did. Actually, one of my famous stories is, I had a teacher who will go unnamed who tore up my drawing. It was during a figure drawing class, and he sat down on my horse, like my drawing horse, and he's just like, no. And he tore it off, and he threw it on the ground. And like I said, I'm a sort of a person who really rejects failure, and so I stood there and I let him do the demo, and as soon as he walked away, I grabbed my mic, I grabbed my stuff, and I ran out of the class crying. I was just devastated. I was humiliated. I don't agree with that type of teaching. I don't think that does any good to publicly humiliate someone into doing better. I had a hard time with that class, actually. He was just sort of one of those very blunt, very skilled person, but he was just really harsh. And people actually warned me about him before I took his class. I'm like, how bad can it be? You know, I can handle it. But he was also one of those that praised a few students. He put our work up, and I would just kind of pray that he wouldn't even say anything about mine. I was like sort of that person. I was like, just don't even notice me. I'd just rather be in the safe zone. But there was only like a couple of artists that he was like, this is what good art is. And you know, just like I was saying earlier though, like, I mean, school is different because they are trying to get you to master certain techniques, and that's for your own good, and that's why you're there, and that's what you're paying for. But there's always some instructors that kind of play favorites. And I honestly believe in like the opposite of this. I think if someone is really struggling, they need more focus, and they need more special attention from that instructor, rather than only praising the one that's doing it right. I mean, what good does that do? I don't think it does any good at all. So yeah, I've been there, but I was also balanced by, I had some great instructors that were kind to me, that believed in me, that helped me. Just to name a few, I had a teacher who's a famous artist named Kazu Sano, And he was amazing. He might have been the best artist at that entire school, you know, using that loosely, but look him up. He did the Return of the Jedi poster for like the first one. It's pretty awesome. And he just was so non-egotistical, and he really guided students and tried to get them to embrace their uniqueness. And I appreciated that, because I hadn't had a lot of teachers that really saw that in me. I think I flew under the radar by a lot of my instructors. I kind of just got by, and I was almost scared to be noticed because I didn't want to be called out for doing something wrong or bad, but I'm not sure. I do feel like a lot of my teachers maybe underestimated me, that they didn't think that I would ever be doing art, and there was students who were super, super praised, and I've never heard from them again, so no tea, no shade, but it's kind of interesting. So take it in stride. You know, if it's really bad, if this is happening a lot, then I would encourage you to maybe go to a superior, go to your department director, or write your teacher an email and just be like, you know, this is where I'm coming from, because they might not know that they're doing it. I think sometimes they don't really know that they're humiliating you, and I don't think any teacher would do that purposely unless they're a complete jerk. So I think it's okay to be honest about that. I did have one teacher who I was very intimidated by, and I don't think he even knew that I was, because I was so quiet. But I finally did write him an email, and I just said, I just don't want you to think that I'm not trying. I'm nervous around you. I have anxiety, and I'm trying to do my best, and I'm a little bit intimidated in the class. And he was very, very nice and very understanding. And I think after that we had a better rapport, because I think he could sense that I was a bit nervous, and so sometimes he wouldn't know how to approach me. So yeah, be honest if you really need to do that, for sure. It can't hurt you, that's for sure. I mean, they're not going to wave your email around and laugh at you, hopefully. So as you guys can see here, I've jumped ahead in time a little bit to show you the progression of this piece, and I don't know, make it a little more interesting for your viewing pleasure. Okay, my next question comes from Arcer Art. Hopefully I'm kind of close. Did you have a favorite princess movie growing up? And if so, what is it, and has it influenced you? Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I guess you mean Disney, but I had a couple other animated princess movies that I also liked. I often say that The Last Unicorn was my favorite animated film. And I mean, Lady Amalthea is not technically a princess, but she kind of is, so I kind of would say that. I'm a big Beauty and the Beast fan, like I said earlier. That was one of my favorites because she wasn't like that typical princess role. I also really liked Ferngully, which again wasn't really a princess role. I guess I was more attracted to, you know, female characters who were independent and went after what they wanted, things like that. So not necessarily princesses. Definitely, I think I actually mentioned earlier that Disney, of course, was a big influence of mine. It's kind of hard for it not to be. I mean, that was one of the earliest things that I was exposed to, and I still love it, and I still love the artistry of it. I really love some modern day Disney concept artists like Brittany Lee. I've mentioned her before. You can look her up. She's just so amazing, and she has such a great sense of design, and she did a lot of the original concepts for Frozen, and I was just like, dude, these are so cool. So I'm still very influenced by that. Okay, next I have a question from my dear Rachel Tilden. How are you, Rachel? Hello. Not sure if this has been asked before, but has any artwork surprised you in the sense that it didn't turn out how you expected, but in a good way? This. Yeah, I mean, all the time. Honestly, part of making art is like an experimentation, right? I mean, you never really know. It's almost impossible for you to predict exactly what you saw in your head and making it like that on the page. That didn't sound very eloquent. But they're all a bit of a surprise. The final product is always a bit of a surprise for me, and it's usually part of what makes art making so exciting. I've definitely had a few happy accident pieces, as I like to call them, quoting my hero Bob Ross. And yeah, so I don't know. There's definitely ones that something kind of developed later on in the process that I didn't even predict. I mean, like this one is funny because I was talking about this earlier, that I transferred it upside down, but I actually really like the feel of this. It almost feels more misty, like she's down in the grass or something, which I didn't have in my color comp that flew away somewhere. So yeah, I don't know. Embrace the happy accidents, you guys. That's part of the fun. If we're not like computers, right? We're not automated. We can't predict exactly what the results are going to be, and why would you want to? I mean, every painting is kind of a new adventure. So yeah, good question. Next, I've got one from William Kogoy, my dear friend William. And he says, my aunt asked me to paint her a landscape painting for her office. This sounds very familiar. Of course I said yes, but I had to do a lot of learning throughout the process. How do you go about trying to paint something you've never painted before? That's a great question, and that's so hysterical because I went through something very similar, especially right after I graduated art school. My family and friends are very kind and supportive, but they all were trying to like find some jobs for me to do. And a friend of my mom's, who's basically like my aunt actually, she was like, oh, I really would love a painting of horses running in the sunset. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I'll pay you. I'm like, she'll pay me. Okay. I have number one, I've never really had any animal anatomy, never painted horses. All I ever painted in school was figures and still lifes. Never painted a landscape before. I did not take a landscape painting class, which I kind of wish I did. I would recommend that. If you're in art school, if you have the opportunity to take landscape painting and like actually paint outside, do it. Because I wish I would have done that actually. So anyway, she wants a landscape with animals. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But the key here is like, I think I mentioned this before. Like, if you're supposed to paint something you've never painted before, don't let your head like get ahead of you, if that makes sense. Like, it actually doesn't matter. You can approach any subject in the same way, okay? Getting good reference, planning your composition, planning your shapes, and then, you know, a good photo reference is definitely necessary. There's a few tricks that you can do to make it easier for yourself, and I do talk about this in my class. We've got a lesson on this, about how to interpret value and forms. Try to think of it without color. I think people get very caught up with color first, but the most important thing is when you're looking at something, an object or a scene that you're a little uncomfortable with, is making sure that the values are in the right place. Because if the values are set right, it's going to read like the object, so to speak. So you can take a reference photo into Photoshop, make it black and white, use some filters like Posterize. Posterize is a really great one to help you break down values. I think I have talked about this a little bit on another video. So I would approach it that way. There's no reason you can't do this. If you have some familiarity with your medium, whatever you're painting it in, and you have some good reference, you can absolutely do it. And I'll have to, I don't know if I took any pictures of my horse painting, but it was actually pretty cool. Like, I remember it came out really nice. She loved it. She still has it up in her house. And it was just so outside my element, but I actually enjoyed the process. And I did exactly what I just told you. I took some, I combined a few photo references of some horses running on a sunset beach. And I planned out the composition in Photoshop, and I used some filters to help me simplify shapes and values, and it came out cool. So there you go. Hopefully that'll get you started. Okay, my next question comes from Storyteller 1031. I just wanted to ask if you had a nice day today. Oh, I know it's not a super interesting question, but I felt I should ask it nonetheless. I sincerely hope that your day has been great and that they will continue to be so. Oh, that's really sweet. And yes, actually, I'm having quite a nice day. My husband took me to lunch today, and I filled myself with a fried chicken sandwich, and that really made my day happy. Although after I ate it, then I kind of wanted to just like loaf on the couch all day. It's like one of those kind of like overcast, misty days here today, and I actually really like painting when it's like that. So, but yes, thank you for wishing me a nice day. I wish you one too. I hope that you're painting along with me today and that it made your day a little bit better. My next question comes from Barnes Yasmin. Hi, I just wanted to say I really like your art and really enjoy your paint-alongs. Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. You guys have no idea how happy it makes me to hear that any of you guys are out there and painting along with me. So their question is, I was just wondering if you had a favorite and least favorite piece that you've painted. Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I changed my mind about this, though, a lot. One of my pieces that I have admitted was never one of my favorites for whatever reason was my piece. I entitled it Rose Red. She had like an apple. She had like this weird, awkward hand. Oh, my arm looked really buff there for a second. I don't know. That was one that like I liked it in my head and it was just kind of, I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like me. I don't know. The prints did okay of it, but it was just something that I was never completely happy with how that one turned out. Of course, I have a few of those. Like I said, I'm my own worst critic. I look at my own work constantly and I'm like, but my favorites often change because I'm in a different place when I paint them. I'm attached to a few of mine though. I'm very attached to my Disney pieces. They mean a lot to me. They're big challenges and doing those iconic characters has been a really special opportunity for me. I like my Lady Amalthea, my rainbow-haired girl. Anything that has rainbows in it, I'm personally connected to. But one of my current favorites is my Space Girl, Sunny, that I just did. I really, I'm proud of that piece. I don't know. It's kind of a turning point piece for me. It was one that I didn't have a whole lot of pain and suffering doing. A lot of my paintings are sort of a labor of love, if you will. Either something goes terribly wrong along the way, or I just beat myself up a lot during the process. So that one, I didn't really feel that way. Maybe it's because I actually gave myself enough time, too. A lot of times when I'm on like a tight deadline, sometimes it's like a little bit more painful when you're trying to do it quickly. And when you give yourself enough time, you can actually enjoy it a little bit more. But anyways, long-winded answer to a one-word question. Okay, I have so many questions to do, so I'm going to try to tear through a few more of these quickly before we have to say goodbye today. Okay, next I've got one from Eliza Rose Illustration. What's the best way to try to get experience for a job? I'm finding it difficult to find studio experience, and it seems to be essential. I'm not. So it sounds to me that you're trying to find a job like an in-house studio job. That's hard for me to answer because this is a little bit ambiguous as to what kind of work you're pursuing. I don't have a whole lot of advice for studio work because I work in my own studio and my boss, she is a bitch. No, I'm just kidding. My boss is me. Yeah, I get it. This is just from my experience. My husband, who works in-house, his first job, he had a few job offers right out of college, but he took a PA position or a production assistant position for a film studio because he really wanted to get his foot in the door. So he basically ran coffee for, a year or whatever. And then he kind of gotten taken under the wing by one of their concept artists who saw his work, and he's like, wow, you're really talented. I'm going to give you a little bit of assistant work to help me. And he basically got into a full-time artist position rather quickly. So I would recommend that. Leave your pride at the door. There's absolutely no shame in taking a assistant position or anything just to get your foot in the door. This might have been an urban legend, but I heard that there was some story about this. I think it was a woman, and she really wanted to work at a specific company. So she, became their janitor. I don't know if that's true. That might totally not be true. And then she ended up getting a higher job up in the company because she had, you know, the proper qualifications, but she just didn't have any experience. So a lot of times, I mean, sad but true, but it is about knowing somebody, just getting your name in there. I'd also recommend, my dad once recommended this, so thanks, Dad, this is probably a great tip, is look into what temp agency the company uses. So like, if you're interested in working for Pixar or something, you can probably find out where they hire their temps. So just get in there and be like, okay, I just want to work at this company. I don't care how I get in. But let me know if either of those things work for you. They seem like good ideas. So my next question comes from Sam Miller 14. Have you tried sculpting? Yes, I took sculpture. I took figure sculpting in art school. It was a required course, and I actually really enjoyed it. It was very different. I've sculpted like a few little for fun things. I don't know. I'll have to see if I have a picture of it somewhere. My sister is like obsessed with Wario from like Nintendo. So one year I sculpted her like a Wario Christmas ornament, and he was pretty awesome. I don't know if I have a picture of it somewhere. I've made some other little, you know, sculpey things for fun, but I don't know, it wasn't really my forte. I don't quite have the patience for it. It takes a lot of patience. But my husband, he was actually a sculpting major before he switched to illustration to do concept art, and he's like freaking amazing. I'll dig up some of his sculptures. Hopefully he won't mind if I show you guys. But they're pretty freaking cool. He had one in the Society of Illustrators before he was even out of college. I know, I kind of hate him. He's sort of like this, he is the overachiever art student that I hated when I was in art school, and now I'm married to him, but but he was just really talented. I don't know. I don't really relate to having that much raw talent, so sometimes he makes me angry. And I just glare at him like over, and I give him like mad side eye when we're in here working. I'm like, eh. But no, really, I can't really hate him for it. It's just who he is. But what kind of cracks me up sometimes is like, I go to his parents' house and they're like, oh, check out, like, here's his awards and like, here's his Society of Illustrators. And I was like, okay. I had like C's, and like, I was told to stop drawing anime, and my teachers were tearing up my drawings. Okay, no, enough of that. Anyways, yes, that's the answer to that. Okay, Super Kid Deficia. Super Kid, I don't know. Super Kid Official Expialidocious. Okay, which do you think is better, Blick Art Stores or Michael's? Blick. Michael's sucks, dude. Like, I only go there when it's convenient. They charge way more. They don't have a good selection. It's a fine craft store. So if you have a coupon, you know, you can get some paint. They have some decent brushes sometimes. But if you have access to a Blick or a Utrecht or Jerry's Art Supplies or Jerry's Artorama or whatever it is online, much better selections. Even Amazon is better prices. So yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna take my amazing Montana acrylic paint pen and clean up some of my flowers, the edges of them a little bit. I love these things. They're really great for outlining and combining with acrylic paint because they are acrylic paint. Can't beat that. So I really like doing some of my like clean edge lines with these at times. All right, my next question comes from Gaga Bullets. I know that you've created some Lady Gaga pieces in the past, and I wanted to know if the interest you've had in her is gone. Oh, no. What are your thoughts on her latest album, Joanne? And if you've heard any of the songs from it, such as A Million Reasons, etc. Thank you. No, I've definitely not lost interest in Lady Gaga. I'm a little bit behind, though. I have not listened to that album all the way through. I've heard A Million Reasons, and I love that. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I'm just busy usually, and I'm just not up on the latest cool thing. But I think I like Lady Gaga more now than I ever have, and actually I think that she's gotten away a little bit from just having to be this sort of pop star. I think she has a lot more control over her career and who she is now, and I love that. She's awesome. She's one of the true superstars. I think she's extremely talented. She's not a one-hit wonder. I think she's proved that she is much more talented than a lot of these types that just come and go. I think she's one of the special ones, and I think she'll be around for a long time. She's constantly reinventing herself. Yeah, I don't know, love her. Definitely haven't lost interest in her. I haven't, you know, done a lot of Gaga tribute art because I am moving away a little bit from doing things that go out of fashion quickly. You know, if she does one look and I do a whole devote a painting to it, in a couple months people might be like, well, what was that for, or whatever. So I do try to kind of stick to a little bit more original ideas when I can. So that's kind of part of that. But she definitely influences me, and I think she is a true artist herself. So love Gaga forever. Next question comes from DBC Artists. I know you've been asked this before about when you became an artist, and you've replied saying that you've always been one. My question is, when did you realize, or what made you have a passion to become an artist? Professional artist, I guess you mean? I don't know. I kind of always knew I'd be one. So I mean, by the time I was in middle school, I was already looking at art school and wanting to go to art school. It wasn't any one thing for me, to be honest. I have a lot of influences that got me into art. The Last Unicorn, Disney, books called serendipity books. I think I talked about this on one of my earliest videos, that the illustrator Robin James was a huge influence on why I wanted to be an illustrator. I was obsessed with her books. I was particularly obsessed when she began writing and illustrating, because that was what I really wanted to do, and I still would like to, actually. So those were kind of the things that pointed me towards it, but I was always doing it. I don't know why. I don't know specifically why, but it was just something I felt connected to at an early age. Cleo asks, my question is, do your hands ever hurt when creating too much art? Yeah, for sure. I have actually answered this one before, and somebody asked me about back and neck pain and hand pain. But yeah, basically I do. I really need to get a massage right now because, like I said, I was working many late nights, and I'm like doing the hunchback typing and film editing. And like I said before, the way I create typically on my videos is where I have my painting flat in front of me, and this is like the worst position to be in. So I recommend getting a table easel or something where you can prop your painting up and paint while keeping your back straight. I mean, if you're not doing videos, I do sometimes film myself that way, but it is easier to show you guys this way. So there's certain things. Just take care of yourself, take breaks, stretch, yoga, massage, acupuncture. I'm going to start maybe looking into acupuncture for some of my pain issues. But yeah, luckily I haven't had too much problem with my wrists or anything. I've had some RSI, but I was able to kind of treat that with getting a ergonomic mouse and doing hot cold soaks with my wrist and hand. But yeah, definitely take care of yourself because we only have one body and we kind of need it to create art. Cookie Cutter Planner 09 asks, I'm in drawing class and I loved it at first, but I'm starting to pull away after we started to do more architectural drawings and less people. So I was wondering, has this ever happened to you when you were in art school, and can you give me some advice to tough it out? It would be really nice if I got some advice from someone with more experience than me. Love ya. Oh, Cookie, yeah. I mean, art school is like that. They're going to make you do things that you don't always want to do. But I would encourage you to be more open-minded than I am, because I did go through this, and you have to take perspective drawing class in art school typically. So I'm thinking that might be what you're having to learn. And it is really not the most fun part. But it is definitely something that may come in handy for you in the future. So do remember that if you want to do illustration of any kind, there's a very good chance that you're going to be doing scenes or backgrounds or some kind of architecture at some point. And while there's some tricks to kind of cheat this, and I have a whole unit on this in my class, I kind of tried to, those of you who are in my class, maybe you can speak up on this. I tried to make perspective a little more interesting and a little more fun, because I know it's one of the most dry, boring subjects when you're in art school. But they're just trying to give you that skill so that you know how to approach that if you have to do that for a specific job, which is very possible. So yeah, just try to remember it's all skills for your toolkit, and don't give up. I have an ex-roommate who hopefully doesn't watch this because, number one, she owes me money, and number two, she probably hates me. But she dropped out of school because of that, and she was a really talented artist and better than I am, and I was actually jealous of her. But she didn't like it when teachers were telling her what to do and telling her what to draw and trying to teach her something new. And even in some of her figure drawing classes, she wouldn't even be drawing the model. She was like drawing in her sketchbook whatever she wanted. And her teacher was like, that's rude. You have a model here who is devoting their time and you're just doing whatever you want. And so I think that was very arrogant on her part. And she dropped out of school. And now, as far as I know, she's like working at Starbucks or something. I mean, no shade against that. But she did not excel in her art because she was too stubborn to learn anything. So I don't recommend that either. I know it's hard, but just remember, like any other type of school, if you really love English, you still have to take science and math and all that because you have to be educated. So yeah, stick it out. Just try to make it fun in any possible way that you can. There are some things that you can do to approach it. Draw one of your favorite buildings or recreate a scene from a movie that you love and focus on designing the room and everything. So I don't know. Try, hang in there. I know it's hard, but you'll get through it. Sarah Ann Davis art, crunchy or creamy peanut butter? Creamy. I am a creamy peanut butter girl. I don't know. Sometimes I don't mind crunchy, but peanut butter, I like it butter. I like it like peanut butter. Peanut butter. That's a RuPaul song. Sorry, I went there. I've had some caffeine. I've had this giant yerba, so I'm starting to like get a little cray and a little bit hyper. My go-go juice here. So now I want to add a few highlights to her skin here. So I have her skin tone in a separate container so I can reuse that. If you're going to be using one color repeatedly, I definitely recommend putting it in one of these little sealing containers. And I'm going to add some nice warm orangey yellow and a little bit of white. And add some little bit of warm highlights to her skin here. Okay, next question comes from Buscando Amaru. Hey Leilani, have you seen the film Arrival? Yes. If yes, what did you think about it? If not, you should really see it. I think you would love it. I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Yes, I did see it. I loved it. Oh my gosh. Actually, I feel that was one of the maybe kind of underrated movies of last year. It was nominated for some Oscars, but I don't think it really won much. I don't know. I just thought it was really unique. I was crying at the end of it. It was emotional. It was well done. I think like the whole message of it was really beautiful. If you haven't seen it, this isn't really a spoiler, but I really think it's about communication and trying to understand something that we don't understand. And instead of approaching it with fear, trying to actually learn. And it's about communication with aliens or other people, maybe. So yeah, I thought it was beautiful. I really loved it. I love those types of movies. I love sci-fi, but I thought it was one of the best sci-fi films I've seen in a long time. Actually, I would say that of last year, of the Oscar nom movies, Arrival, Lion, and Moonlight were my favorites. Hopefully I won't catch too much flack for saying this, but like I just was not really a La La Land fan. It was like cute. It was cute. I enjoyed watching it. I didn't like the ending. I was just like, that just felt very out of place for me. I felt like they were trying really hard to be different and not have a happy musical ending, but it was just kind of like, I'm like, bitch, please. Okay, you already had like a 4-year-old child. Like, I did not understand that at all. I'm like, you could have gone and done your show and then come back to poor Ryan Gosling. And I'm like, what the hell? You couldn't wait like 6 months? Because clearly she met that guy and like had that baby like immediately because it was not that long of a time. So I just like didn't really buy that ending. It felt very weird to me. It felt kind of shoved in there. And I was like, really? It was lame. I consider myself a bit of a musical buff. I love musicals, and just didn't really do it for me, frankly. I don't really I only remember maybe one of the songs. I don't know. I wasn't very impressed. Maybe I'm just old and bitter in my old age. I thought, like, she was cute in it. I like, what's her face? Emma Stone. I really like Emma Stone, but that's just kind of how I felt about it. Anyway. Okay. A couple more questions for today. From Mara Jade Assassin. Sorry, my page is kind of like warped, so everyone's name looks like kind of like spaced out weird. Mara Jade Assassin. Any chance you may be traveling to Florida, Disney location, to meet and greet guests there? Not at this time. Like I said, Disney doesn't pay for any of that, so it would be completely on my own dime. So, like, they don't pay for a flight, they don't pay for a hotel, and in California, I can drive there, so it's not really, I mean, it's a long drive, but it's not that far for me. So at this point, I'm not sure. I would like to. I don't know. Maybe next time I talk to them, but I don't know. At this point, it's not in the works. Okay, my last question on this episode is going to be from Autumn York. You're the winner of the final question. Diddy. Autumn York says, if you could change one thing about your wedding and or honeymoon, what would it be? My husband. No, just kidding. That's horrible. Oh my god. Plus Michael Fassbender won't return my calls. It's really weird. Nothing. For real. It was okay, don't get choked up. You got this. Okay. It was the perfect day. It was perfect. It exceeded my expectations, quite frankly. My family, they made it happen for me. My friends, my bridal party. I love you guys. If you're watching this, all of them. I had the best people, my favorite people in the whole world were there with me, and I'm super, super grateful. And our honeymoon was freaking fabulous. We went to the Virgin Islands in the off season, which was supposed to be hurricane season, but they happened to be in a drought, so there was no one there. We literally had some of the most gorgeous beaches in the world, like basically to ourselves. And we just ate and drank a lot of beer, and it was freaking awesome. So I honestly wouldn't. And I was so tan. I was like as tan as this. Oh my god, I looked so brown. I miss it. Now I'm all pale again and San Franciscan looking. Anyway, okay guys, well that's it for me for this episode, but I think I might just go ahead and keep going, and I'll do like a part 2 because this lady is due tomorrow, and we might as well get it done together, yeah? So thanks for watching. I'll continue over to part 2. Thank you for joining me. If you have a question, post it in the comments below or on my Instagram. And they're starting to pile up on me, so I'm trying to get caught up because it's amazing to me. I've now done like, how many of these? Like almost 20 episodes of the Paint Along, and you guys still come up with interesting and unique questions. So awesome. Thank you for that. I really love chatting with you guys and making arts. Okay, so making arts, not arts. Anyway, see you guys very soon, and keep creating. Okay, Super Kid Official. Super Kid, I don't know. Super Kid Official. Super Kid Official. Super Kid Official Expialidocious. Hey, shoot!